Today we have Miss Hardin's fourth grade class, and on the Virginia Tech side we've got some folks from the Amazing Brain team, How We See the World. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen and Anna Lynn.
Thank you so much, and I'm really happy to be here. So hello, my name is Jen. I work at Virginia Tech, and I work in a lab. I do research, and the research I do is to study the brain and how it works.
My name is Anna Lynn. I also work at Virginia Tech, but I'm a graduate student, so I'm not a doctor yet, like Dr. Jen.
So what is neuroscience? Neuroscience is the scientific study of the nervous system. So those pictures I have right there are pictures of some super special cells that send signals all throughout your brain and all throughout your body. So what we look at specifically is your brain and your spinal cord. So I want you guys to put your hands on your head. You guys all put your hands on your head. So this is your skull, and it's a nice hard protection for your brain that's inside. But then you also have something called your spinal cord. So if you put your hands on your neck, behind your neck, that's your spinal cord, those bones that go down your backbone. That protects your spinal cord, which is right on the inside. And your brain and your spinal cord make up the central nervous system. We also study special cells. Those are kind of like those building blocks that make up all of your body, right? So in your brain, we have special cells called neurons. And these are just cartoon pictures, but neurons are the cells that send those messages all over your body. But it's not just neurons. We also have cells called microglia and astrocytes. There's lots of different cells that all work together to make up your brain. But what we're going to talk about today is how your brain helps you see. So when you guys think of seeing, you probably think of your eyes, right? Eyes are what you need to be able to see. But you actually need more than just your eyes. Your eyes connect to your brain. I'm going to show you a picture of a brain. Are you guys ready? Just a cartoon, but that's a picture of a brain. Right here is your eye. You have something called a nerve that goes from your eyeball all the way through the middle of your brain, all the way to the back to this cortex here. So I want you to take your hand again and pat the very back of your head, right there. And then I want you guys to say visual cortex. You guys say that out loud, say visual cortex. That's the part of your brain that gets all the messages from your eyeballs. That's called your occipital lobe, and that's where your visual cortex is. So your eyes help you see colors and see the video that we're watching right now. Then we have the lens of your eye. That's the part that's behind your pupil, and it's gonna help you see.
What happens to people when they lose or when they get a concussion?
What happens to them? Okay, well, I'll start answering and then maybe Annalyn can help me out. So when you have a concussion, what happens is when you get a hard knock in the head, your brain is actually kind of soft, and it can make your brain kind of slosh around inside your skull, and it can hit the side. And when it hits the side of your skull, it can almost get like a bruise. So it gets kind of smushed, right? And there can be a little bit of bleeding. And I want you to think about it. If you sprain an ankle, it might swell up really big, right? What happens to your brain if it swells? Does it have anywhere to go, or is your skull in the way?
Skull, I guess?
Yeah, your skull is in the way. So you can get a lot of damage from a concussion. And normally, if you have a concussion, it'll heal and get better because that's what your body does, right? But sometimes some of the cells get damaged and they die.
What happens if you lose one of your cells?
Oh, that's a good question in your brain if you lose them. So some of your brain cells, if they die, some of them can't grow back. Okay? So unfortunately, they're gone forever. But your other cells are really smart. They know what to do. So they can actually grow new projections and they can make new connections. So they can kind of make up for the cells that you lost. But you know what's extra special? You guys are kids and you're still growing. You have lots of really special cells in your brain that can make new cells. So just because you lose one, that means that one's probably gone forever, but you can grow a new one to replace it. So that especially happens with babies because they're still growing their brains. And you guys are in fourth grade, so you're probably 9 or 10 or 11 years old. Your brains are gonna keep growing and developing even when you're all grown up. They just grow more when you're little.
Can some sicknesses affect your brain cells?
Can what affect? I didn't hear the first part.
Sicknesses.
Yes, they can. So your brain can be definitely affected by some sicknesses. And one kind of illness that can get your brain is called Alzheimer's disease. Has anybody ever heard of Alzheimer's disease?
No.
So Alzheimer's disease is something that happens mostly to people when they're older. And unfortunately, their cells start to break down. So they get sick and some of their brain cells die. And they especially die in the part of your brain that helps you remember things. So what can happen is when those brain cells get sick, people forget what they did the day before, or they might forget where their house is, or forget how to get to the grocery store. And that's something that a lot of neuroscientists are working on. And I think some people in Anna Lynn's lab actually study that. So they're trying to find ways to help those cells stay healthy so people can remember longer.
Okay, is a brain cramp a headache?
And so guess what? Did you know that your brain itself can't feel anything? You could have surgery on your brain and you wouldn't be able to feel it. What you feel when you have a headache is actually usually the muscles in your head can get really tired and they can hurt around your skull, or you sometimes have blood vessels in your brain. So if you have changes in something called your blood pressure, if you have too much blood or not enough blood going to your brain, you can feel it as pain.
What does your tongue connect to?
So remember we said your eye connects to the optic nerve? Your tongue, there's a couple of nerves, but one of them is the hypoglossal nerve, okay? But there's lots of other ones. In your tongue, you have two things it does, right? It can move. So keep your masks on if you have them on, but you can stick your tongue out and you can pull it in. Those are all of your motor neurons are making you do that. So you can control those. So those are a type of nerve. Or you also have taste buds, right? Because you guys can taste things with your tongue. Your taste buds are also, they have special nerves that connect to your brain to help you decide what something tastes like and whether you like it or not.
What causes seizures?
Oh, that's such a good question. Okay, so seizures, remember we said that your neurons can send signals to other neurons and they can make your muscles move? They do that with electricity, okay? And when you have a seizure, what happens is some of the cells in your brain start firing and sending signals when they're not supposed to, and they get so excited that they tell all the other neurons to get excited with them, and they all fire at the same time. And when they all fire at the same time, you have something called a seizure, and it can make every muscle in your body be really tight and still, or it can make them all move and be really jittery because there's different kinds of seizures. But those can be caused by something, it's like an electrical storm happening in your brain. And in little kids, sometimes fevers can cause that. And then there's also some people have something called epilepsy, and we're not entirely sure what causes that, but those people are more prone, so they're more likely to get seizures pretty often, depending on what they're doing.
Can you explain maybe to us how drinking water helps your brain to keep moving?
Oh yeah, so water is super important to stay hydrated, okay? And your whole body requires water to stay hydrated. And one of the reasons is you wanna make sure that you are hydrated, and it can help you keep your blood pressure up so it doesn't get too low, and it can help you deliver the most important thing to your brain, which is actually sugar. Now that doesn't mean you get to go eat candy. What it does mean is you have to eat healthy foods along with your water so you can deliver all of your blood with nutrients in it to your brain all the time. And if you're dehydrated, then you're not going to be able to think clearly, and you know what's going to happen? You're going to get a headache.
What happens? What does your brain and your spine happen to make your feet and hands fall asleep?
When you get, like, if you ever like fallen asleep on your arm and it gets all numb and then it gets tingly, what's actually happening there, it could be two things, but most of the time it's actually because you cut off blood flow. So you didn't have blood going to that part of your body. And if you don't have blood going, then remember we said your nerves need the water and they need the sugar and they need oxygen. They don't have it, then they can't feel anything. And the pins and needles that you feel is when it's starting to come back or it's starting to fall asleep.
What great questions and what a great presentation. Jen, we appreciate you bringing brain science to where we can all understand it. And Anna Lynn as well. What a fabulous job you've both done. And students, what fabulous questions you have. And thank you, Ms. Harden, for organizing and coordinating everyone.
Goodbye, guys. Thank you.